Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the European crossover webinar. And we are seeing the euro continue to stay on the weak side, dollar pressing up, and we're almost right here. We actually just about come up against our bias chart resistance here, pushing up against this 98.18. You can see there's a good level right here with some resistance, but as we've talked about, the euros continue to stay weak, and it may continue to stay that way unless we can see this dollar to just pull off of its own accord. We have seen the cable going in and sell off. There's a weird headline about going and touch on that real quick about the the Queen potentially being asked to get rid of, or not get rid of, but could be asked to suspend Parliament. You can see that weird, but we're going to get into that. It's just a very short story, but that's why it went and took a dip on here. Looking here at gold, we had actually dipped a little bit lower after getting up to that 1544. If you're with us during the daily roundup, we were right there at the time. We mentioned it about that being a good little area of resistance, and whether or not we'd be able to push beyond that 1544. We actually stalled there and came off a decent amount from there, and down to probably about 1533. And then we've been working our way back up, but we've kind of rotated back after we touched 1544 again here on the gold market. Actually, we're just going to jump on that quickly just to show you. Right here, you can see where we made that run up here. It's 1544. Now we rolled over, and here we are just making another run back up here. We just touched it again and just kind of pulled back off now, almost $4. S&Ps are relatively steady at this point, and 10-year yields are continue to stay very close to the lows. But you can see here that as close to the lows they are, it seems like the bonds are just a bit weaker as far as yields, and then it's obviously making a drag on the euro, to say the least. And we'll get back to the main screen. Speaking of which, we can see right here the euro getting ready to press against these lows again. Tried to make a little run here. You can see here almost at 111, and we're just turning around, rotating back lower again. And you can see here the dollar index, as I mentioned, is just about pressing up here on this 98.18. Let's go on and take a look at that news that we mentioned. Says investors stick with the yen as recession fears grow. The Japanese yen held on to recent gains on Wednesday as worries about a global economic downturn encouraged investors to buy the safe haven currency, while broader forex markets were largely quiet as investors watched from the sideline. Two-year U.S. government bond yields rose further above the 10-year yields, a deepening of the so-called inversion of the yield curve that may see a harbinger of the recession. The ongoing escalation of trade tensions between the U.S. and China, combined with the unpredictability of Trump, brings to the table, leaves market participants on the edge of the possibility of the direct intervention. The possibility is likely to keep the dampening demand for the U.S. dollar at these higher levels, so likely helping to dampen demand for the dollar at the higher levels is what it's saying, although dollar's still trying to push up a little higher. The Aussie has been on the back foot since RBA Deputy Governor DeBell said on Tuesday that a weakening of the currency was supporting the economy and that further falls would be beneficial. The Aussie had fallen to a decade low of 66.77 early in August, and on Wednesday it stood at 67.38. Analysts at ING said the positive news in Italy, where the five-star movement and the opposition Democratic Party appear on the verge of agreeing a governing coalition, would not help the euro significantly. Instead, the escalation of trade wars merely looks to extend the slowdown in manufacturing, depressing European growth still further. Like all active currencies, the euro looks soft and could break down to any new lows at any time. And this is my concern, and we'll get to that. You know, yesterday during the FX daily roundup, I was kind of giving the euro a hard time, and I guess to me, last week when I picked it up on the way down, and spent the better part of the half of a week in the red until finally things turned around, obviously on Friday. But once again, we've slid back down, and my concern is that we can break lower just as it's staying, and I think that it's if we do break lower, it should get down to the 108 area without very much trouble whatsoever. But we shall see. Let's see what itself plays out. Onto the cable story. Town falls a report Britain's Queen could be asked to suspend Parliament. Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said that the UK is leaving the European Union with or without a deal on October 31st, and media previously reported that he wants to suspend Parliament to help force through an exit. So we shall see. This is a little bit of a weird story to me, but we shall see. Let's go on and move on now with the news for the day. Well, coming today, obviously no news, which is really going to try to keep things relatively slow. What we're seeing here, just mortgage applications. Not until we get into the next rollover day, which is the Kiwi Business Outlook and activity. But let's go move this out of the way. Let me just check one other thing on that. And I'm just submitting the news calendar. But like I said, just mortgage applications, and that's it. Let's go move into the bias chart. This is this is my concern here with the euro. Is that can we're hanging here at these levels, and actually, what the story was stating was that if it wasn't because there's a concern that there could be an intervention on behalf of the dollar, that's the only thing that's keeping the dollar from pushing higher. We shall see. My concern is like I said, that we had already came down here, and the move that we saw on Friday, we were languishing at the lows until the thought was, and then Trump had tweeted out, the Fed doesn't know what he's got up his sleeve, and the thought was that maybe he was going to do something with the dollar. So we saw a flurry that continued to grab a little bit of short covering, some additional short covering, but at the end of the day, we didn't close above that 1054. And then when we came in on the Sunday session, we saw other pairs jump up rather quickly, but the euro dollar barely took out the highs of Friday, and then quickly started to sell back. And once again, here we are continuing to stay on the weak side. It won't take much to break this, and that's what the story was saying also, is that when it does break, it could come, and it could come, they feel, at any time. And one of the things I talked about yesterday in the FX Daily webinar, daily wrap-up, was that these bears are basically selling the euro with impunity. I mean, it's just like they're not worried about it. It's just like, go on. If it comes against me, don't worry about it. I know we'll eventually be lower, or at least that's what seemed to be the case. My thought is that even if we do turn around, you're really not going to go in and shake any of these bears out until you get a daily close above 1211. That's the only way, and I'm not saying that changes everything, but only a daily close above, forget 1154 now. We could just see a little bit more short covering, but if they would just figure, okay, I'll just have to weather a little bit, or this gives me a great opportunity to add. But really, unless we get a daily close above right there, 1212, Um, that's the only thing that's going to cause some additional short covering, and you can see that's quite a ways from here. So let's go on and take a look where we stand here. And support's going to be down here at this 1053. At this point, I mean, you can make the case maybe a little bit low here at 1069, but once we get to start pushing lower, to me, it's just going to go on and start to kick in some more shorts. And from there, I think that the market is going to go on and push for the 1053. And obviously, if we get a foothold below that, forget it. It's all over. So let's go with 1053 for the support. And for resistance, we'll go with, let's move this down to 1138. 1138. The big resistance is up here, but I'm saying any little quick short covering rally, quick pop, you can make a run up here towards, right here at 20. But let's take a look here. Yeah, it's going to be 1138 on the upside. Let's go move into cable. Well, we come into this little support area, this 2164. We took that yesterday's body chart support here, 2203. Just when it looked like it's going to break out, we've probably knocked some people out. But I'm not so sure if we're going to press a whole lot lower. Let's go on and move into the 2-hour chart here. Yeah, there it is, 2155. We'll go with that, 2155 for the day. Right, is actually basically right at the day's low. Resistance is going to still remain here at this 2288 that we had in place. Any move up in here, I'm not sure that they're going to turn around and sell it right back down, but any moves back up in here will probably fall short. Any moves back up here toward the 2243, but a move back up here, that's just going to go on and allow the market to go on and roll back up a little bit higher. I'm not saying this is going to happen today, but the real resistance remains here at 2288. And with that, let's go and move into the Aussie. Well, we're pretty quiet, and this is going to remain the same, 67.98, with support here at 67.26. So trading relatively quiet here. We know that, like I said, Governor DeBell was saying that the lower Aussie has been helpful for the economy, and there's a risk that they're going to go on and that this pair will go and continue to weaken at this point. But staying relatively quiet. Let's go and move into the Kiwi. We have been able now to press a little bit lower, and we actually have made that move down here to 63.26. I think that was our bias chart support. Actually, we had 63.40, so we've actually made it down here to the 63.26 level. Let's take a look at this. Pull this further back. Right there, you can see where we've got just this little ridge here. So we actually tagged it and are holding there at 63.26. So we'll have 63.26. See if we can't attempt to hold that today. But this market does appear, this pair appears to be destined to go and head lower. The next real significant area of support at this point would come in right there, 62.54. So the door's open for a test of 62.54, but we have some support here at 63.26. And resistance, well, that's that big support level that's now going to be resistance, which is going to be 63.89. And let's go move into the dollar CAD. Well, this pair have been a bit odd in the sense that, we made this extra little push here. We couldn't do anything with it. The market came in a bit, made one more last dash up here, challenges is 33.36, fell back, and just about the time where it looks like, okay, now we're going to weaken, now we pop right back in place here. So this one has been tricky in the sense that there's not been any real big movement here on either side of this pair. We're staying confined in a very tight range. There's been thought that with the Bank of Canada, we'll see them take additional action. But at the same token, they feel that the Bank of Canada, but that the Canadian economy will fare better because of the U.S. consumer and that it's not as exposed as other countries with all the trade tariffs issues. So we're kind of just stuck dead in the middle here at this point. So resistance will return back to this key 33.36. And let's go and take a look at the 2 hour. We came up against this 32.74. You see that yesterday? This has been a pretty nice little rally. I mean, we didn't quite make it at the 38% here. But we had our buy chart resistance yesterday at 32.74. I thought that might pause the market. It certainly wasn't going to be an area to want to go and sell it only because we'd come close to the 38%. But I am surprised that, look, it's still continued to add to its gains. So support now, we'll drag this down here, would now be there, 32.69. And let's go move into the dollar peso. Well, we had that challenge yesterday back into the zone, but we paired back here. Resistance now is going to be that lower part of the zone, which I think we had yesterday anyway, 20.059, and I think we have 20.05. Yeah, it's 20. So we'll keep that right at 20.05. And support, well, let's go and take a look here. We're actually holding this 19.95. Let's see if we can see something on the 2 hour chart. No, it's still going to be this 1988. We're going to stick with this 1988 because if we do pick a quick slide, that's where support will come in. There's going to be some additional here at 1993, but it's 1988 where we'll find some buyers step in, if nothing else, for maybe a little bit of short covering target. Um, let's go and move into the dollar yen. Hmm. Well, we're staying quiet here in the dollar yen. Look at this. Boy, this is about as quiet and graveyard. I like to call it graveyard trading as you can get. Boy, look at that. Sheesh. We've basically been trading in a 12 pip range. Um, dang. Resistance now, you can move this down to 601. And 551. And let's go and get into the cash dollar index. You can see right here at 98.26. We may just move that up just a hair higher. We had 98.18. You see that. There's a 98.18. We've just about made up here. We're just going to move this just a hair higher for the daily close level right here. You see right there? So it's going to be 98.26. We can push a little bit higher. And we mentioned this also yesterday, is that now this big fall here, look, the market was basically trading 97.60. It's just on Friday, you see this quick jerk down. We saw that the prior Friday before that. I remember that thing. Whoa, wait, what the heck? So, but nonetheless, you would have thought that we would have seen some volatility. We're just simply not seeing it. But I think this has a lot more to do with what's going on with the euro and the euro's inability to do anything with any kind of rally. And to me, I talked about this emboldening the shorts, and you have to wonder here is that when we hit these stops, this thing can just really just slide. And if it does slide, don't forget the euro comprises 56.3% of the cash dollar index. Well, this dollar index could really take off. I think as quiet as it is this week, I think that to me, this is the one thing I'm going to keep an eye on here is this euro and whether we can push these stops. And if we do, boy, don't be trying to catch any kind of a falling knife, because I tell you what, I think that people aren't going to stand the way of this thing, and then we could really press slow. What's going in now? Move into the cash dollar index. We're going to go with 98.26 on the upside. And support 97.84. 97.84 at this point. This is really something else when you think about this. Here is the Fed looking like they may go on and continue to cut. Now, whether this is a mid-meeting cut or more of a new move, that's being left up to debate. But that being said, you would have thought that the cash dollar index would be paring back here. I mean, when you look at this in the bigger context, you have to wonder, boy, what the heck? This dollar index, even with it cutting, even with the Fed already having taken a 25 basis point cut, but the potential for definitely another 25 basis point at the next meeting, if not maybe even more, and it's not slowing it down. But obviously the drag is right here with what's going on with the euro, and of course all with the negative yields. Um, so if you want a yield, you have to go into U.S. paper because everything else is negative. Um, and obviously with the concerns with Germany going into recession, um, and obviously the continued woes with Brexit has really put and kept the euro on the defensive. Not that it was any great strength from a technical picture to start with, it's only just exacerbated things, and so it certainly appears that if this market does want to move lower. Let's go on and move into the cross rates. Here we go. Well, quiet as can be here, although a little bit of a downside edge, certainly with the weakness that we've been seeing in the Kiwi. Um, and we pressed just below that prior day support of 67.15. Um, and the Kiwi certainly looks like it wants to continue to go on weekend. We're trading quiet, but the next real support comes in at 66.67. And with the potential for this to weaken, I think we have to go with that. Let's go with that 66, just mark it 66.68. And on the upside, right there, 67.30. Going with the euro yen, and we are just trapped. Well, we know the yen's not even moving, so really there's not going to be any changes here with the euro yen here. Got 17.18, and on the upside, really no real challenge until we get up to 17.77. Anything else would just be uh, just a minor flurry of some shorts. I mean, there'll be a little bit of resistance coming in at 17.58, but this is where the real resistance comes in at 17.77. Let's go on and move in now to the euro odd. Well, we see pretty much the same thing here with the euro odd also. Um, 64 on the downside, and The euro is certainly having its own tough time here. Even with the also being weaker, it's not grabbing much of a gain. And like I said, this is the explosive moves that we saw here in the Sunday session. Obviously, they gave those back, but at least we saw those explosive moves. And with the euro versus the dollar, it was not the case whatsoever. So this is going to remain the same here at 65.04. And we'll take a look here with the euro kiwi. We have gone above the resistance here. Let's go in and take a look here. So the next level will be 75.40, but that's really going to be more about Kiwi weakness versus Euro strength. But we'll go with 75.41, which would be the 78%. We're going to move this just a little bit higher because my concern is that this Euro weakness. We have tried to break up higher. Yeah, it's going to be right here, 74.32. Still a ways down, but we shall see. And with the ASEAN, well, no changes here. Look how quiet the ASEAN's trading. Man, you remember, I don't want to say back in the day, but it was only like probably 4, maybe 5 months ago, this thing would whip around like crazy with equities. You could trade it as a proxy for the SPUs, and boy, those days are long gone. So no changes here. No changes whatsoever here on the ASEAN. Let's go move into the Guppy, which is probably going to stay relatively quiet, although we've seen a little bit of downside action with the news with sterling. So we did go in and break below that support, but this is an area right here. You see this touch is coming here. We'll actually move this right there. That comes in at 28.68. And on the upside, it's still going to remain the same right in here. Right there. We can actually lower it a little bit, which is going to be 29.65. 29.65. And let's take a look at sterling odd. It's the last week of August, so some of these moves are rather suspect. Obviously, the issue with the whole thing with Parliament or potential to suspend Parliament certainly put the sterling on the defensive. But once again, last week of August, be careful with that. 80.34 is going to be the bias chart support. With resistance, 81.75, 74. Let's go back into the main screen. Well, it's quite August trading last week. I mean, as far as the last week, but this is the real concern here with the euro. And once again, like I said, I'm not saying to go and chase it, get short right now at this time whatsoever. But I'll tell you what, I would not be trying to step in and try and hold this thing because it won't take much to press. If we get pressing, and I'm not saying they're going to break to new lows. My concern is here if they do press it, we can quickly slide down here towards the 1060, 1050. Now, we may end up holding there until next week, but I tell you what, you could, come in and say, okay, well, I think this is a decent area for a long, and they can hit the stops quickly, and I think those stops will really flush through and challenge that 1050. We may end up holding. We may end up dipping sub 1050 and then end up popping up on a little bit of short covering, but like I said, this is one to be careful with, to say the very least. Other than that, everything else is relatively quiet. Thanks for joining us here on the European Crossover. We'll see you on the FX Daily Wrap-Up at 12:30 Eastern.